let's just move on to our guest, all right?
To our guest. I love our guest.
Oh my God, our next guest, yeah, we do. He is one of our favorites. He is John Vandermosten. He's the Senior Life Sciences Analyst for Zacks Small Cap Research and Unboxing Biotech. He's got his thumb on the pulse of everything going on in the research and biotech world. We welcome John to the Big Biz Show once again. John, my friend, how you been?
I've been doing great. How about yourself?
We're
Sounds
not,
like it's rainy out there, huh?
Yeah, it is. And like Mary said, you know, Southern California, San Diego, we freak out when we get just a little moisture
60,
on the road.
65.
The roads get slippery. I know. They get slippery out there. It's dangerous.
It does get dangerous, especially with the way people drive here. John, the big life sciences conference in San Francisco a couple of weeks ago, we'd had you on. We were talking about it. Can you kind of recap for us what were some of the biggest stories that came out of that meeting there up in the Bay Area?
Yeah. There, you know, we had a lot of M&A that was announced, and obviously that's the big driver for the smaller cap names that I work on. You know, one of the things that a lot of these companies are facing right now that are out there looking for new names is the patent cliff that's coming up. And I don't know if you're familiar with that or not, but
can you explain that to us, please?
Yeah, so companies have usually a 20-year life for the drugs that they develop, and then sometimes they get a little bit more based on certain things. But we've got a lot of the biggest drugs out there kind of coming on the end of their lives in the next few years. You know, names like Bristol Myers, like Pfizer, like AbbVie. They all have these multi-billion-dollar drugs that are going to lose patent protection pretty soon, and they need to figure out a way to replace that with something. And that's one of the big things that's really been a focus.
So is that a situation where I can't just go apply and reapply for the patent, that when it has whatever the death date is on that, it is over, there's no extending it?
Well, there is some extensions, and you know, sometimes companies will change the formulation or change something about the drug to make it a little bit better, and then that will allow it to extend a little bit longer. But when it runs out, there can be competition. Now, I will make one point that makes things a little bit different in the current period rather than maybe 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. 10 years ago, a lot of the drugs that were going off patent were what are called small molecules, you know, like pills, like aspirin or something like that, you know, where you just take it and it's a very simple chemical compound. But the drugs that are more popular now are biologics, which are very complex. And it's a little bit harder to copy them. And also the regulatory pathway to get those approved to be a biosimilar, which is kind of like a generic, is also a little bit more difficult. So it's harder to have competition, but it's still out there. I mean, Humira, which you've probably heard of, most of us have heard of, that was able to extend about 20 years of selling the product. I think it was up to $30 billion when it finally completed, but you know, there are probably 10 to 12 different biosimilars out there for that drug. So, you know, a lot of the other ones that we've heard of also can face that same competition.
Hey, John, you mentioned a few minutes ago Bristol Myers, and I know you've spoken to us before. They have a drug out there for schizophrenia, which is a market that is kind of a bigger and I think growing market, but there's not a lot of drugs out there. Can you talk a little bit about their drug? I think it's called, I don't even want to try, Cobenfy?
Cobenfy, yeah, that was recently approved. So they bought the company. They bought the company that was putting that through the FDA. You know, it has pretty favorable analyst forecast for sale. I think in excess of $2 billion a few years down the road. But it's not really doing anything super new. You know, they target certain dopamine and serotonin receptors in the brain. And what I think different drugs try to do is kind of refine which ones they're touching on, because they're about 4 or 5 of each. So that, you know, hopefully it'll be a little bit better than some of those. There are positive symptoms and negative symptoms in schizophrenia. And I think, you know, sometimes the negative symptoms aren't addressed enough. And this drug actually addresses those a little bit more. Now, I've got a company called Reviva Pharmaceuticals that actually has something that has shown it's even a little bit better than Cobenfy. So I'm really excited about them. Yeah, Reviva Pharmaceuticals, RVPH, good product in their pipeline.
John Vandermosten is the Senior Life Sciences Analyst with Zacks Small Cap Research and Unboxing Biotech, one of our favorite guests because he can break it down in terms that a meathead like myself can understand as far as the biotech world is concerned.
I agree. John, what are you seeing from the FDA? Are they still in that point of being overwhelmed with too much work?
I think they've caught up with that. I think right now, probably, the change in administration is making things a little maybe less certain kind of what's going to happen. I think that there's a hope that the regulatory environment will free up a bit. We saw a record number of drugs approved last year with 55 of them approved. So that, that's a pretty good pace. It could perhaps go even more. And as I mentioned, we've got a patent cliff that's coming up for all 5-10 top major pharmas, and they need to get new drugs approved, right? So that would probably be helpful if we saw the FDA, be more receptive and do that. And I think they can. I mean, I don't think, we don't have a major, at least not yet anyway. We don't have a major, virus going around that's going to distract them like we did with COVID.
Hey, John, walk us through radiopharmaceuticals and this area, this intervention space or reintervention space that it's currently in.
Yeah, well, there was a long period of little being done in radiopharmaceuticals, but about I think 7 or 8 years ago, there started to be some M&A that because I think the big pharmas recognized that there were new things coming along that could really help them. Now what has happened is that the isotope part of it, the radioactive part of it hasn't really changed, but what has changed is what you bind the radioactive part to, which is able to find either a cancer or some kind of other thing that they're trying to target in the body. Now, one of the most interesting areas in radiopharma right now is Alzheimer's disease. We had 2 drugs approved there in the last few years, and patients that may want to go on the drug need to see if they have the amyloid beta in their brain. So it's really exciting, the improvement in specificity and precision that these new drugs are able to do, and they're able to bind very specifically to that amyloid beta in the brain and certain kinds of amyloid beta that are causing the problem. So it's really exciting what's going on there, and I think Alzheimer's is one of the areas that's most interesting. It had traditionally been just in cancer,
sure,
right? Either cancer treatment or cancer diagnosis, but it's expanded out into a lot more areas now.
Hey, John, I want to segue into another hot topic, which is the GLP-1 space that seems to be growing daily.
Okay, yeah.
Is that real? I mean, there just seems to be new drugs coming out or starting to come out, and then also other items that they're helping. I know it started with diabetes, and then it became this weight loss magical thing. But then I'm hearing it's helping with sleep apnea and other things, and maybe that's just because people are losing weight. But can you tell us a little bit about what's going on there?
Yeah, weight loss had been for a very, very long time hard to tame. There were a series of drugs. I mean, I think we maybe remember fen from
Oh yeah,
God.
That's a blast from the past.
It's caused heart valve problems, and then there were some other drugs that caused some other problems. I think there's a side effect of suicide in some of them as well.
Jeez.
So when we found that the GLP-1s were actually working and we didn't see any side effects so far anyway, that were concerning, that really seemed like the holy grail of weight loss. And then all these other benefits, you mentioned, there are cardiovascular benefits, the sleep apnea benefit that you mentioned. Those are kind of byproducts of losing weight. So, there's still some issues with the current round of drugs, but I think I mentioned this last week. The muscle wasting, right? Some of the new GLP-2 is an area that we're looking at, and sometimes we'll combine some of the older weight loss drugs with the GLP-1s to get a combination effect there. So they're looking at different things and next generation drugs in that class to provide an even better result.
John, speaking of losing weight, Super Bowl is this Sunday, and I'm just.
I know. I've been already warming up the cheese sauce in the microwave.
My arteries are hardening just talking about it. You got a prediction? Eagles or Chiefs?
What for cheese?
A prediction on the game, Eagles or Chiefs?
He's still on the cheese topic.
The Chiefs probably. I guess.
Yeah.
Why not stick with the winner there?
John Vandermosten is the Senior Life Sciences Analyst, Zacks Small Cap Research and Unboxing Biotech. John, as always, appreciate your time. Look forward to your next visit with us here on the Big Biz Show. Speaking of that show, it continues after this. Keep it here.